Welcome. My name is Melissa Miller, and it is my honor to serve as the 2021 president for the Kansas City Sister Cities Association. In the heart of Kansas City, Missouri, spanning Brush Creek on the Country Club Plaza, stands the Sister Cities International Bridge. Dedicated in 2000, the bridge is home to the national flags of Kansas City's 13 sister cities, from Seville, Spain since 1967 to Yan'an, China since 2017. 2021 marks the 65th anniversary of the Sister Cities program and offers a timely opportunity to explore the active business, cultural, and educational links that reinforce Kansas City's vibrant international identity. In that first year, 1956, President Eisenhower partnered with civic leaders such as Kansas City's own Joyce Hall to create people-to-people and sister city affiliations around the world to help build the solid structure for world peace. The Sister City Association of Kansas City coordinates relationships between Kansas City and its 13 sisters on 4 continents. Through its individual sister city committees, the association pursues its mission of promoting peace through mutual respect, understanding, and cooperation. With decades of educational, cultural, and commercial exchanges, the Sister Cities Association celebrates Kansas City's status as a global city. We invite you to get involved with the Sister Cities Association at kcsistercities.org. There, you can learn more about our individual sister city relationships, as well as upcoming events and how to join as a member. The Sister Cities Association of Kansas City is proud to partner with the International Relations Council in Kansas City to bring our community this virtual series of monthly conversations with representatives from Kansas City's sister cities to get to know these communities that bridge Kansas City with the world. Please enjoy and don't hesitate to reach out with any questions or your interest to get involved. We'll see you soon.
I'm Janet Fisher, co-chair of the France Sister City Committee, and I want to tell you today a little bit about the French history of Kansas City and why having a French sister city is so important. So I'm going to share my screen. So our French history dates back over 300 years. You may not know that Kansas City was founded by the French. French was the spoken and written language in Kansas City long before English. The first name of Kansas City was French, Chez les Cans or Chez les Canses, which refers to the Kansa Indians. Although few of the French documents and none of the buildings still exist, there are history markers around town that locate French historical sites, and I'll tell you more about those later. In the 1600s and early 1700s, French fur traders already had a robust business with area Indian tribes, such as the Kansa and Osage. Beaver pelts were in particular demand to supply the European craze for beaver hats. The Kansa and Osage Indians learned French from the French fur traders, and many of the fur traders took Indian wives, so their children continued to speak French. France controlled the Louisiana Territory most of the time from the 1600s to 1803, when Napoleon sold the territory to the United States, and Missouri was a part of the Louisiana Territory. You've probably heard of Marquette and Joliet, the explorers of the Mississippi River Valley, but I doubt you've heard of Étienne Vignard de Bourbon. In 1713, this dashing young Frenchman, actually a fugitive soldier from Fort Detroit, traveled up the Missouri River to Caw Point, where the Missouri and Kansas rivers meet. De Bourgmont was the first European to explore the Missouri River Basin and to call the Missouri and the Kansas rivers by their names that we use today. In 1723, when de Bourgmont returned to France with the first ever survey maps of the Missouri River, he was named the commandant of the Missouri River. So back to Missouri he went, where he built Fort Orleans east of Kansas City to protect the interests of French fur trading companies. And because the Indians trusted him, he was able to negotiate treaties with area Indian tribes, therefore opening trade routes to the Southwest. In 1725, de Bourgmont returned to France, but this time accompanied by several Indian chiefs. By all reports, Paris was enraptured by these handsome Native Americans. And King Louis XV, at the age of 15, hunted with these Indian chiefs in the royal forest of Fontainebleau. This mural in the Missouri State Capitol shows their return to Missouri, and the Indian bride, sporting the latest French fashion, was baptized in Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. So ends the first chapter in our French history. The second chapter picks up 100 years later in 1821 with François and Bérénice Chouteau. The Chouteaus came from St. Louis to present-day Kansas City by keelboat, much like the one you see here, and they opened a trading post. Chouteau's settlement, the first permanent settlement on the Missouri River, was called Chez les Kanses, at the village of the Kansa, which evolved into the name Kansas City. So 2021 is the 200th anniversary of the founding of Kansas City. By the 1830s, at least 100 French Catholic families had settled in the area, which remained entirely French-speaking until the 1840s. These families were primarily involved in fur trade and farming and lived in the French Bottoms, which today we call the West Bottoms. The Chouteau trading post was the center of activity. Francois was not only licensed to trade with the Indians, he was a banker and a real estate developer too. Life was far from easy for these early settlers. There were floods and diseases, and Bérénice faithfully ministered to the Indians who suffered from these diseases. White Plume, pictured here, the principal Kansa chief, had 4 French-speaking granddaughters. One of them, Josette, was raised in the home of the Chouteaus. After Francois' death, Bérénice, the Grande Dame and mother of Kansas City, continued to live in Kansas City and be an important part of its development for another 50 years until she died in 1888 at the age of 87. She had outlived her husband and all 9 of her children. Amazing. I tell you, these French settlers were made of sturdy stock. Francois is recognized as the father of Kansas City. This life-size bronze sculpture of him will be a part of the Chouteau Heritage Fountain. And the fountain will be dedicated in July this year, 2021, to celebrate the founding of Kansas City 200 years ago when Francois opened his trading post. And by the way, Missouri became a state in 1821. So we have 2 bicentennials this year. Not to be forgotten is Kansas City's importance as a railroad center. And that is thanks to another Frenchman, Octave Chanute, who designed and built the first railroad bridge across the Missouri River in 1869. The French historical markers that I mentioned earlier were a project of the Chouteau Society, now a part of the Jackson County Historical Society. The markers are in English and French on the reverse side, like the one pictured here. This marker locates the first church in Kansas City, St. Regis, established by the French. The Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception was built on the site of the French church and even has a French catechism from that church. This is a wonderful tour brochure of French historical sites in Kansas City and can be downloaded and printed from the Jackson County Historical Society website. And for you techie people, there is an interactive Google map with the exact location of the 11 historical French markers, and you can access that from your cell phone. Also available on the Jackson County Historical Society website. As you can see, Kansas City has a rich French heritage, and it should be remembered and celebrated. And we think having a French sister city is a great way to do this. To learn more about the sister cities of Kansas City, you can go to the website right here. And if you're interested, we'd love to have you be a part of the France Committee, and there is information on how you can do that. So now, Anne Sunderland, Chair of the France Committee, will tell you more about our search for a sister city in France.
Bonjour, I'm Anne Sunderland, Chair of the French Sister City Committee for France for the city of Kansas City. If we do not have a French sister city in Kansas City in the spring of 2021, it is not for the lack of trying. You've heard about the French origins of Kansas City, one very good reason to have a sister city in France. We are an ideal city in my mind to have a French sister city. We are the city of fountains, the city of boulevards. We are a beautiful and cultured city. And whenever French people come here, they truly appreciate our city. Sister Cities International, located in Washington, D.C., requires that the two cities that are matched have several things in common. In other words, commonalities. One of the most important is geography. Our central location is important, as are the rivers that flow through Kansas City. As for the economy, we are known as a transportation hub, and agriculture and biomedical sciences are important industries. Population is an important aspect of the sister city relationship, and it's one of the harder ones to meet. For instance, Kansas City has over 500,000 inhabitants and 2 million in the greater Kansas City area. But in France, such large cities are not the norm. Only 7 French cities have populations greater than 1 million. Culture is an important aspect of a sister city relationship. We have wonderful art museums, and we also have the only museum in the United States dedicated to World War I. Music is an important aspect of life in Kansas City. In 2017, Kansas City was named a UNESCO City of Music. And lastly, education, an important aspect of a sister city exchange. We are very proud of Académie Lafayette, the French charter school for grades 1 through 8 in Kansas City. We also have several universities within the city limits, including Rockhurst University and the University of Missouri, Kansas City, which both have important French programs. In 2001, a group of prominent Kansas Cityans met and decided they wanted to propose that Kansas City have a French sister city. They focused on Reims, which is a wonderful city in eastern France in the area of Champagne. Reims was not interested in our proposal. And so the committee started again and focused on a city not too far from Reims called Metz. Metz is near the border with Germany and was heavily affected by World War I. In 2003, Mayor Kay Barnes sent a letter to the mayor of Metz proposing that there be a sister city relationship. Amazingly, she received a reply 2 weeks later. The longtime mayor, Jean-Marie Roche, was very much in favor of this twinning, and both city councils ratified the agreement in short order. In 2004, This Municipal Council of Metz proclaimed their agreement, and Kansas City had a sister city in France. Exchanges began. One of the most important was in 2005 when a group of school children from Académie Lafayette visited Metz. However, neither mayor was ever available to meet and sign the agreement. We continued on until 2008 when municipal elections were held in France. Unfortunately, Jean-Marie Roche lost to a man of a different political party, Monsieur Dominique Gros. In short order, Monsieur Gros sent us a letter saying that he no longer wanted to have Metz remain a sister city of Kansas City. He wanted to interrupt the relationship immediately. So in the intervening years, we have tried very hard to find a different sister city in France, and we have been unsuccessful. Metz, once again, has a new mayor. We plan to propose that the two cities reinstate the sister city relationship. We hope that the new mayor, Monsieur Grosdidier, will accept our proposal. Please wish us luck as we start on this new endeavor. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tasha Sugasagorita, also known as Nathalie Sugasagorita, a French honorary consul here in Kansas City. And I would like to introduce you to Felicia Jordison Landré. I don't have a superlative that is strong enough to describe her life and achievement and the enthusiasm and energy she brings to everything she does. She is now Curator's Distinguished Professor Emerita of Theater at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, where she taught theater history for 42 years, including graduate level course in French theater history. She now serves as president of Umkc Moliere 400s in 2022, a nonprofit organization bringing together theater, visual arts, music, dance, film, puppetry, and culinary delights for a citywide celebration of Moliere's 400th birthday. Project I believe she created and initiated. So that brings me to ask you, Felicia, why Moliere in Kansas City? And also, for those who may not know, tell us a little bit about Moliere, who is extremely popular in France.
And very popular here when people have seen a production of one of his plays. They never forget it, how funny it was. So once people get introduced to Moliere, they know that he transcends time and place and all of those other boundaries that we think about. He's for everybody. And so that's why we're doing it. Why Moliere? Why here? Well, Kansas City is an arts capital of the world. The richness of our arts in Kansas City is amazing in terms of theater and audience support. We have one of the highest per capita theater attendance records in the whole United States, and dance and music and visual arts, all of those things. So bringing together all of the arts on one subject is, in a way, unifying and liberating. Kansas City has such a strong French heritage. Our city was first settled by French fur traders. So, and interestingly, that was almost exactly 200 years ago. So 200 years of French on this land, 400 years of Moliere.
Tell us a little bit about what you're going to do. I mean, I said, film, visual art, music, dance. Tell us a little bit more.
Yes, I'd love to. Well, we started in May 2018, and we had a lot of representative arts leaders from all over Kansas City come, and we talked about bringing all of the arts together on a theme for particularly focused on January 15th, 2022, but maybe leading up to it for 6 months with educational programming. And then for the next 6 months afterward, January to June, more professional opera, ballet, puppet shows, of course, a lot of theater, of course, and poetry and, well, food, gardening, anything associated with the spirit of Moliere, the French comic spirit, the Baroque, French Baroque heritage, or the French heritage in general. So we had a designer volunteer to design our logo. This is what we put on our letterheads and our flyers and communications on our social media, all of those things. We have a lot of social media initiatives. What our mission is partly to showcase the arts of Kansas City and to show the value of the classics, which I think is important because that's something that's kind of getting phased out of education. And we need to show that the classics are for everybody, and they still have something to say to us, that we can still relate, that those people were not so different from us, and the specifics of their problems were different, but some of the foundational things about human nature have not changed in 400 years. So we need to keep that continuity. And then, of course, part of the mission also is to show the world what a great city Kansas City is for the arts. You know, we are such a great center right here in the Midwest, in the heart of America. We are the city of the arts. I wanted to just show you how important the Native American component is alongside the French in Kansas City. I just picked up these 3 books as examples. Chez les Cons, Chez les Conses. This is a book about the early French fur traders with the Osage and the Conza natives, 2 different, and the Kansas River is named after the Conza. And this is a very good one. Before Lewis and Clark, the story of the Chouteaus, the French dynasty that ruled America's frontier. The French were here first. And then there's this one, Cher oncle, cher papa, the letters of Francois and Bérénice Chouteau back to their relatives in St. Louis. So they were here on the very frontier, the edge of nowhere, and with their fur trading post on the bank of the river, and then sending letters along with the boatloads of furs back to their relatives in St. Louis. And then also when the Chouteau Fountain opens, August, let's see, that will be July 24th. There will be an all-day celebration on the grounds of the new fountain. It has statues, bigger than life-size bronze statue of Francois Chouteau and a native man and a native woman, both Osage. Of course, the focal date has to be the birthday, unfortunately, in January when the weather is kind of unpredictable. But January 15th, 2022, we'll have a lot of events that day with the birthday cake and French folk songs. We have commissioned a new pastry called the Moliere. André's Confiserie Suisse, René Bollier, the master pâtissier at André's, is creating a pastry, the Moliere, using flavors known to the court of Louis XIV. Master sommelier of Kansas City, Doug Frost, is coordinating the flavors of the pastry with a Moliere label coffee and a Moliere label wine.
Thank you for doing this for Kansas City. Well, we hope it brings Moliere to be well known here, and and we will have fun.
And our relations with France. That's so important.
Let me introduce you to Matthew Neller, Dr. Matthew Neller, the CEO of the National World War I Museum in Kansas City. You are the World War I Centennial Commissioner here in Kansas City. And I want to ask you about the museum. Tell us a little bit more about the story of World War I Museum, which is
well, Tasha, thank you. It's really a delight for me to join you. It's what a wonderful story of the National World War I Museum and Memorial. Soon after the armistice of 1918, some community leaders came together in Kansas City and said, let us do something to honor the war dead of the region and to create a tribute for peace. And then in 19, a most extraordinary thing happened. In a 10-day period, the people of Kansas City came together and they raised $2.5 million, the equivalent today of about $40 million in 10 days to construct this monument and to create a museum which tells the story of the Great War, a really compelling story. Then in 1925, the 5 Allied commanders came here to Kansas City to dedicate the land from France. Foch was here, and from the UK, Italy, and Belgium, and the United States, because Pershing is from Missouri. And then it was opened in 1926. So we seek to tell a global story. It's not a US-centric museum, really the only museum of its type in the world that is as comprehensive in its collection and in its interpretation. So we have many objects from France, from the Cathedral at Rheims, many of the belligerents. So we were designated then by the United States Congress as the National Museum and then the National Memorial.
And I believe you work with museums, World War I museums in France. They must have a few, maybe not as big as yours, but where are they and which one are they doing?
Yes, indeed. We are very pleased to be in partnership and have collaborations from loans and visiting, learning from one another, from the Museum of the Great War in Péronne, from the Museum of the Great War in Meaux, and from the Verdun Museum in Verdun, and then also a number of smaller museums in Paris. So still the French story is being told, and we see ourselves as being an important partner to French museums and to the French nation in telling the French story in the United States, because there's no other institution quite like us in the world.
And tell me, of course, you have many French objects in your collection. Can you name some that are important? I understand you have a Renault tank.
Yes.
There's a big piece, but
Yes. So a number come to mind. We have a Renault tank, which is battle scarred. It has been hit by artillery. It's of great interest to our visitors to see the emergence of the first tanks, which themselves evolved quite quickly. And then, of course, were used by allies and others. It's a small tank, which also is of real interest. And what's particular about this is that people who serviced it would often inscribe their name on the inside. And if you were able to go into the tank to see, you would see that it is scratched with the names of some people from Kansas City. This did not come from Kansas City, but it ended up here in Kansas City, and people from Kansas City served in this very tank in France. So it's a wonderful object that has also a local connection. We also, as I mentioned earlier, have some fragments from the Cathedral at Rheims, which of course, as we know, was consistently bombed throughout all of the war. And as the cultural icons, the pillars of French culture very often were targeted in order to undermine the morale of the French. And so we are given these pieces by the French government as part of our collection to help us tell the story of the sacrifice of the French, the impact and the bravery of those who served and endured as well. So I think that that's also some wonderful pieces. And then, of course, French 75 is an important artillery item that we have, which was so important in the war efforts as well.
Thank you very much. Bonjour, je vais vous présenter Julian Sugasagorita. Let me introduce you to Julian Sugasagorita. He is the CEO of the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art. He was born and raised in Mexico, fell in love with France and decided to study there, where he got his PhD at the Sorbonne. He went on to live for 18 years in France, where he happened to marry me. Tell me a little bit more about the Nelson, especially the French collections.
Well, first, thank you. And definitely, it is great to be interviewed by you. This is the first time that it happens. And I was anticipating with a lot of excitement this, because if there's one thing that France has given me, it's so many things, but the joy of living with you. So anyway, the Nelson Atkins and the French collection, I think we owe, like most museums in America, a great debt to French museums. In terms of the French collection, it is part of that narrative of Western art. And so we are so lucky to have great masterpieces coming from France. And right now, one of the important things that we have been accomplishing is also creating a catalogue raisonné, so a comprehensive catalog of our French collections.
Does it compare with other American museums in terms of size and quality?
So,
how does it?
So the museum's collections overall are around 50,000 objects, ranging from contemporary photography to daguerreotypes to painting, sculpture, all medium. And so in a way, our collection is of a medium size, but the quality is of a higher size. So we're considered among the 12 museums of encyclopedic in America. I want to always put the French collection in the overall nature, and that's why a French catalog helps also establish exactly what the French collection is. And I invite everyone to look at our website, nelson-atkins.org, where you can explore the French collection. It's our first also catalog online, our first digital catalog, and that allows everyone to see it for free and have access 24 hours a day. But it is important to put also the French collection in the dialogue with all of the other collections, because when we particularly work with France in exchanging works of art, what France, and we're part of the Franco-American Museum Alliance frame, that it's a collaboration between a lot of museums in France and a lot of museums in the US. We exchange all of the works of art. But one of my favorite works of art, and I'll try to capture the beauty of it in a few minutes, is Monet Water Lilies. And we have just re-displayed it in a special gallery.
You mentioned that you worked with France, with French museums. You did quite a few exhibitions. Can you talk about some of them? And is there any future project with French Museum in this difficult times?
We're always in dialogue with our French colleagues and friends. Definitely Frame, the Franco-American Alliance of Museums, who we hosted here a few months ago or years ago for a international conference, has paved the way for many possible collaborations coming down the future. For instance, we had amazing projects, and that's why I was saying the collections from here are revered and also important. So one of the great joys of my tenure here at the Nelson Atkins was discovering the Native American collections. We have one of the greatest collections, and the Musée du Quai Branly early on recognized how important our curatorial expertise and also our collections were, and charged us through Gaylord Torrance to create an exhibition that would go to the Musée du Quai Branly that was so well received. It traveled, of course, to the Nelson Atkins and then went to the Metropolitan Museum in New York. So that is one exchange from us sharing collections with France, for Paris in particular. And then through another collaboration with Quai Branly and Musée Picasso, many years later, we hosted an exhibition that was Picasso in light also of his admiration and inspiration from African art. So it was a very interesting exhibition where we hosted works coming from Quai Branly, Musée Picasso, and others. And so again, all of these are international collaborations that frame and a lot of our international contacts make happen. And that's why also creating relationships between cities and relating that is so important, because at the end, it's the international personal context that one brings that makes cities become part of a global discourse and a global friendship.
And I also want to mention one of the favorite room from a lot of people here is the cloister that comes from France, I think near Beauvais, if I am right. But
exactly, a 14th century element, structural elements from a cloister that frames some of our medieval galleries, and it is just an amazing space. Kansas City has been a great community to be involved with, to develop a lot of cultural offerings. And again, I know that the energy and the love and passion that our people in Kansas City have for the world will be very well received also in collaboration with other cities in France. And we can't wait to continue building those bridges.
Bonjour, je vais vous présenter Dorothée Bazin-Werner. Dorothée est à Kansas City depuis de nombreuses années. On va dire qu'elle a passé plus de la moitié de sa vie à Kansas City. Vice-principal de l'Académie Lafayette, une école d'immersion française. Et aussi, elle est présidente de l'Alliance française. Mais passons d'abord à l'Académie Lafayette. Dorothée, raconte-nous un petit peu de quoi il s'agit.
Alors, Académie Lafayette, d'abord bonjour, et je suis ravie, Tasha, de ce rendez-vous avec vous, et surtout de parler à nos amis en France sur cette magnifique ville de Kansas City. Donc, Académie Lafayette est une école publique à charte d'immersion française qui existe depuis 1999, donc 20 ans et quelques, et c'était la première école à charte à Kansas City. Elle a été fondée par des parents de l'école internationale qui s'appelait l'école Longen dans les années 90 et des professeurs francophones qui venaient de France, de Belgique, de Suisse, du Québec, et Sénégal et Cameroun pour monter une école d'immersion française. Nous avons aujourd'hui 1200 élèves sur 3 campus. L'enseignement est complètement en français, y compris les classes de support, donc les classes d'art, de musique, de gym. Par contre, nous suivons le programme américain. Donc, ce n'est pas comme un lycée français où on suit le programme français. C'est une école publique américaine à laquelle viennent des enfants de toutes les familles de Kansas City. Donc, notre vision, et je vais le traduire en français, c'est nous voulons être l'école où les enfants de Kansas City grandissent pour devenir académiquement excellents, responsables globalement et des participants actifs dans la vie de la communauté mondiale. Donc, notre mission est d'éduquer les enfants de Kansas City pour qu'ils soient actifs localement, qu'ils pensent de manière critique à travers l'immersion dans les langages et les cultures mondiales. Donc, nous sommes essentiellement en langue française de la maternelle jusqu'à la 4e. Et à partir de la 6e, ils rajoutent une 3e langue. Les enfants ont le choix entre le mandarin ou l'espagnol. Et notre lycée, qui a ouvert cette année, par contre, est un lycée où les enfants passent le baccalauréat international, mais ce n'est plus en immersion. C'est une école donc, où la majorité des cours sont en anglais, mais avec toujours une grande présence des langues étrangères, le français bien sûr, le mandarin et aussi l'espagnol.
Oui, comment est-ce qu'on rentre dans cette école? Est-ce qu'il faut un critère particulier? Est-ce qu'il faut parler français avant d'arriver? Quels sont les clés pour rentrer dans l'école? pour les
Alors,
élèves?
c'est tout simple. Comme nous avons plus de demandes que de places, il y a une loterie. Donc, comme c'est une école publique, le seul critère est que les enfants habitent dans les limites du district scolaire de Kansas City. Donc, ça s'appelle le Kansas City Public School District, qui va de la rivière jusqu'à la 85e et de State Line jusqu'à la fin de la ville à l'est. Et il n'y a aucune attente que les enfants parlent français avant de venir. Donc, nos élèves arrivent au mois d'août de leur année de maternelle sans parler un mot de français, et la magie se passe dans les classes. Les classes de maternelle sont incroyables parce que ils miment, ils ne parlent jamais anglais, ils jouent, ils dansent, ils chantent. Donc, nous ne prenons de nouveaux élèves qu'en maternelle et première année. Après, il faut qu'ils parlent français pour venir dans notre école. D'après notre consul à Chicago, c'est la plus grande école d'immersion aux États-Unis. La plus grande école d'immersion française aux États-Unis. Nous avons 1200 et quelques élèves cette année. Et cette école a commencé en 1999 avec, je crois, 70 élèves. Donc, c'est une école qui a des excellents résultats sur les tests de l'État, que les enfants prennent en anglais, forcément. Et parce que nous avons des très bons résultats académiques, il y a une liste d'attente pour rentrer dans notre école. Les frères et sœurs des élèves, forcément, ont priorité pour que les familles puissent avoir tous leurs enfants à la même école. Et ensuite, c'est ouvert à ceux qui veulent venir. Mais et puis, cette prouesse académique ne vient pas seulement de nos enseignants qui sont formidables, mais c'est surtout quand on apprend deux langues dès le départ, il y a un développement intellectuel qui se fait plus rapidement et qui aide les élèves à progresser. Donc,
Bon, mais alors, ça m'amène à parler de l'Alliance française.
Mais l'Alliance française existe à Kansas City depuis 1963. C'est une des plus anciennes, à être un centre d'accueil pour les apprenants, mais aussi qui se développe de plus en plus pour être un centre de rassemblement pour les gens dont la première langue est le français et qui voudraient se retrouver entre eux et avoir des échanges entre Français ou Belges ou Sénégalais, etc. Donc la francophonie est très importante pour nous. On essaie de ne pas être trop ethnocentrique sur juste la France et de proposer d'être un centre d'accueil pour tous ceux qui aiment la langue française, quel que soit leur pays d'origine.
Merci beaucoup, Dorothée.
Je vous en prie.
Vive la France. Hi, Kathy Kraus, you are the head of the French section at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. We used to be the chair of the Department of Languages, but French prevailed. So tell us about the French program at UMKC.
So we are part of the Department of Foreign Languages and Literatures, which at the moment offers degrees in French, Spanish, and German, a minor in German studies, and therefore faculty in French, which is great. I wish I could say it was because it was planned that way, but some of it was serendipity. But that means that we get to cover a wide variety of aspects of learning French and about France and Francophone culture. So it's really great. I mean, we have a really wide-ranging faculty, and that lets us offer a really wide range of classes.
And do you have many students?
So we have about 20 or so majors at any given time. We've had more than that. We've had fewer than that. It kind of depends on the moment.
Do they have the opportunity to study in France, to travel?
Of course.
Besides the pandemic.
Yes, if it weren't for the pandemic, I would have been able to say that our summer study program in Lyon, which I founded the year after I got here, because obviously I had contacts in Lyon from my time there, had run every summer without fail. The pandemic put an end to my claim, but hopefully in summer of 22, we will be back. Students go for 6 weeks. They don't have to be UMKC students. We take students from universities across the country. and they get 9 credit hours and live with a French host family, which is really the most important part of the program. I mean, the classes are great. We have activities. We visit lots of cultural sites in Lyon, as well as having some excursions on the weekends to places like Annecy and Avignon.
And now, do you have many students from France at UMKC that you know of?
Yes, usually we do. We have usually a good crop of students who are from France, often in the Block Business School. For a while, we had a regular exchange. I'm not sure that's still going on. And because of our exchange programs where our students can go study in France, we receive students from those French universities at UMKC. And we love having them. The French faculty love having them, because then we can have them participate in activities with our students, which gives them a chance to meet American students, but also gives our American students an opportunity to speak with native French speakers in a social setting, not just in the classroom.
Is there a need for French speaker here in Kansas City for jobs? Do you find that your students find job requiring French?
Find jobs. I mean, I just got an email a few weeks ago, for example, that Garmin was looking for interns. They have a big unit that does client relationships and product support for Francophone countries around the world. And so they're always looking for people with good French skills. We have had other students go to work obviously for law firms after going to law school, in doing international legal type things. And Kansas City has a large contingent of French firms that are based here in the United States that work in all kinds of things, animal health, I'm sure you know, and engineering, or if you go as far as Wichita, some of the aeronautics industry. So yeah, we have students who have gone on to use their French skills. We have one who sells tractors. Not something one would have thought of, but John Deere sells tractors to Canada and needs people who can communicate with the people in Canada.
Well, thank you very much. We'll do that.
Thank you.